August 15, 1889. Cottonwood Creek, Wyoming Territory. The train platform smelled of coal smoke and broken dreams. And there I stood, Grace Eleanor Whitmore, watching the only other passenger step off that iron beast with a confidence I'd never possess. She was everything the advertisement had promised. Everything he had requested. Blonde hair like spun gold, blue eyes bright as a summer sky, curves that would make any man's heart race. She wore a traveling dress of fine green silk, carried herself like a duchess, and smiled like she owned the world. I was none of those things. Dark hair pulled back in a severe bun, brown eyes too serious for 23 years, a plain gray dress that had seen better days, thin as a rail from years of barely enough. And worst of all, I carried a secret that would destroy everything the moment it came to light. "Are you Mr. James Holloway?" the beautiful blonde asked a tall, broad-shouldered cowboy who stood at the platform's edge, his hat in his weathered hands. "No, ma'am," he said quietly, his voice like gravel and honey. "That's me." And he was looking directly at me. My heart stopped. This had to be a mistake, a cruel cosmic joke. The matrimonial agency had mixed up the letters, the photographs, the entire arrangement. They'd sent 2 women to Cottonwood Creek when they should have sent one. And he'd clearly chosen the wrong one. "Sir, I think there's been a terrible mistake," I managed, my voice shaking. "You ordered the wrong girl. I shouldn't be here." The cowboy, James Holloway, rancher, widower, father of 2 according to the letters, looked at me with eyes the color of storm clouds. Then he smiled. Not a big smile, just a slight curve of his lips that somehow changed his entire face. "No, Miss Whitmore," he said softly. "I ordered exactly right." What he meant by that would unravel everything I thought I knew about why I'd come west. And the truth? It was far more complicated than any mail-order bride arrangement had a right to be. 2 months earlier, I'd been living in a boarding house in Boston, working 16 hours a day in a textile factory, watching my future shrivel like cotton in flame. My father had been dead 3 years. My mother followed him 6 months later. I had no siblings, no prospects, and no hope of anything better than dying young with lint in my lungs. That's when I saw the advertisement in the Boston Evening Transcript. Respectable rancher in Wyoming Territory seeks correspondence with moral, hard-working woman for matrimonial purposes. Must be willing to relocate. Must be fond of children. Physical beauty not required. Strength of character essential. Write to James Holloway, Cottonwood Creek, Wyoming Territory. Physical beauty not required. Those 4 words had given me courage. I'd written him that very night. An honest letter, well, mostly honest. I told him I was educated, having finished 8th grade. I told him I was hardworking, which God knew was true. I told him I had no family, no prospects, and nothing to offer but determination and a willingness to build a life from nothing. I did not tell him the other truth, the one that made me unmarriageable in Boston society, the one that had cost me my reputation and nearly my sanity. His response came 3 weeks later. His handwriting was rough but legible, his words simple but kind. "Miss Whitmore, I appreciate your honesty. I'm not looking for perfection. I'm looking for partnership. I have a ranch, 2 children who need a mother, and a life that's hard but good. If you can accept that, I can accept whatever shadows you're running from. We all have them out here. The West doesn't care about your past. It only cares if you can survive your future. If you're willing, I'll send train fare. James Holloway." I cried reading that letter. Cried because someone, a stranger 1,500 miles away, had offered me something no one in Boston ever had. A chance without judgment. We'd exchanged 3 more letters. I sent him a photograph, a cheap tintype that made me look even plainer than usual. He sent one back. A serious-faced man in his early 30s, tall and lean, with a weathered face that spoke of sun and wind and hard work. Not handsome in the classical sense, but strong, solid, real. His final letter included train fare and a date, August 15th. "I'll meet you at the station. We'll be married by week's end if we suit each other. If we don't, I'll pay your return fare, no questions asked. Fair is fair. JH. Fair is fair." Such simple words for such a momentous gamble. I'd quit the factory, paid my last week's rent, and bought a single ticket west with nothing but one carpetbag of belongings and a heart full of desperate hope. The journey took 4 days. 4 days of rattling rails and endless prairie and slowly shedding my old life like a snake sheds skin. By the time we crossed into Wyoming territory, I'd almost convinced myself I could become someone new, someone worthy of a fresh start. Then the train pulled into Cottonwood Creek, and I saw her, Lydia Prescott, as I'd later learn. 20 years old, blonde and beautiful, wearing a dress that cost more than I'd earned in 6 months. She'd boarded in Cheyenne with tickets for Cottonwood Creek, chattering to anyone who'd listen about her mail-order arrangement with a wealthy rancher. He saw my photograph in the matrimonial catalog. She'd gushed to an elderly woman in our car. Wrote immediately, said I was exactly what he wanted. We're to be married within the week. Isn't it romantic? My stomach had dropped. The timing was too coincidental. Cottonwood Creek was barely a dot on the map. What were the odds 2 mail-order brides would arrive the same day to the same tiny settlement? Unless the agency had made a terrible mistake. Unless they'd sent his letter and my photograph to the wrong woman. Unless I'd traveled 1,500 miles for nothing. When the train finally stopped and we both stepped onto that platform, I'd been certain. Certain he'd take one look at her golden beauty and my plain brown ordinariness and realize the agency had bungled everything. But he'd looked at me, only at me, and he'd said I was right. Now he stood there, this stranger who held my entire future in his weathered hands, and I had absolutely no idea what he meant. Lydia Prescott looked between us, her perfect face twisted with confusion. Excuse me, but there must be some mistake. I'm the bride. I have the letters, the tickets, everything. Ma'am, James said politely but firmly. I never wrote to anyone in Cheyenne. I wrote to Miss Whitmore in Boston. She's the woman I've been corresponding with. She's the one I asked to come. Lydia's face went from confused to furious in seconds. But the agency said, the agency, James interrupted quietly, made their own arrangement with you. I didn't. And suddenly I understood. The matrimonial agency office in Cottonwood Creek was barely more than a shed attached to the general store. Mrs. Beatrice Hartwell, the agency's local representative, was a plump woman in her 50s with shrewd eyes and a smile that didn't reach them. Mr. Holloway, she exclaimed when we entered. James, myself, and a still furious Lydia. I see you've met both of our lovely ladies. Aren't they just... What game are you playing, Beatrice? James's voice was quiet but carried an edge that made me shiver. Mrs. Hartwell's smile faltered. I'm sure I don't know what you mean. I wrote to one woman, Miss Whitmore. I sent fare for one woman. Yet somehow, Miss Prescott here also received a letter claiming to be from me, along with tickets to Cottonwood Creek. He leaned forward slightly. Why is that? The older woman's face flushed. Well, I simply thought, that is, when I saw Miss Prescott's details in the central registry, I thought you might prefer. You thought I'd prefer the prettier one, James finished flatly. Well, yes. Mrs. Hartwell's composure cracked. Mr. Holloway, you're one of the most eligible men in the territory. Successful ranch, good standing in the community. You could have your pick of women. When I saw that you'd chosen this, she gestured dismissively at me. This plain little thing from Boston, I assumed you simply didn't know better options existed. I was doing you a favor. The words hit like slaps. Plain little thing. I'd heard variations of that phrase my entire life, but somehow, hearing it in front of James Holloway, this man who represented my last chance at a decent life, made it hurt worse than ever. A favor, James repeated slowly. His jaw tightened. You forged my name. You used my reputation. You defrauded Miss Prescott and nearly destroyed Miss Whitmore's hopes. You call that a favor? I call it good business sense. Mrs. Hartwell snapped, abandoning pretense. These agencies work on commission, Mr. Holloway. The prettier the bride, the higher the fee. Miss Prescott here comes from a wealthy family. They paid handsomely to find her a suitable Western match. You're a catch. It's a perfect arrangement. Except I'm not a horse to be traded, James said coldly. And neither are these women. Lydia, who'd been uncharacteristically silent, suddenly spoke up. Wait, my family paid to have me sent here? They told me you'd chosen me. They said it was romantic, that a successful rancher had seen my photograph and fallen for me immediately. Mrs. Hartwell shifted uncomfortably. Well, your parents felt that certain indiscretions in Philadelphia made a fresh start advisable. Lydia's face went white. They sold me. They dressed it up as a mail-order marriage and sold me to get rid of me. The pain in her voice was raw and real. Whatever indiscretions she'd committed, her family's betrayal clearly cut deep. Despite her beauty and my jealousy, I felt a sudden kinship. We were both women society wanted to discard. You'll refund Miss Prescott's family immediately, James said to Mrs. Hartwell, and you'll arrange her return fare to anywhere she wants to go. Philadelphia or elsewhere, her choice. And if I refuse, then I'll contact every rancher, miner, and settler from here to Laramie and tell them exactly how you operate. See how much business you get then. Mrs. Hartwell's face turned purple, but she nodded stiffly. Fine, but don't expect me to refund your fee, Mr. Holloway. You're getting exactly what you paid for. She shot me a contemptuous look before stalking into her back office. The three of us stood in awkward silence. Finally, Lydia turned to me. I'm sorry, she said quietly. I didn't know. I thought. She laughed bitterly. I thought someone actually wanted me. Stupid, wasn't it? No, I said. It wasn't stupid at all. She studied me for a long moment. He really chose you, not because you were available, but because he actually wanted you. I don't understand why, I admitted. I do, Lydia said softly. She glanced at James, who stood slightly apart, giving us space. He's not looking for decoration. He's looking for someone real. Someone who won't shatter the first time life gets hard. She touched my arm briefly. Good luck, Grace. I think you'll need it out here. What will you do? I asked. Lydia straightened her shoulders, and I saw steel beneath the silk and beauty. I've always wanted to see San Francisco. Maybe I'll start there. On my own terms this time. She left with more dignity than I could have mustered. When she was gone, James turned to me. I'm sorry you had to see that. Why did you choose me? The question burst out before I could stop it. She's beautiful. You're real, he said simply. Your letters were real. Your photograph showed someone who'd known hardship and survived. That's what I need, Grace. Not beauty, not perfection. Partnership. You don't know me, I whispered. You don't know what I'm running from. His storm gray eyes met mine steadily. No, but I know I want the chance to find out. The Holloway Ranch sat in a valley 15 miles from town, surrounded by rolling grassland that stretched to distant mountains. The house was larger than I'd expected. A two-story structure built from logs and stone, with a wide porch and real glass windows. The barn, corrals, and outbuildings spoke of prosperity earned through sweat and determination. James drove the wagon in silence, giving me time to absorb my new reality. As we crested the final hill and the ranch came into view, he finally spoke. It's not fancy, but it's solid. I built most of it myself after I bought the land 8 years ago. Been adding to it as I could afford to. It's beautiful, I said honestly. Compared to the cramped, filthy boarding house I'd left behind, it looked like a palace. My first wife, Caroline, she wanted curtains in every window, he continued, his voice careful. Flowers planted along the porch. Little touches to make it a home instead of just a place to sleep between work. I tried to give her that, but he trailed off. What happened to her? I asked gently. Pneumonia. 3 winters ago. She was sick less than a week, then gone. His hands tightened on the reins. The children, Emma's 8 now, Daniel's 6. They barely remember her. That's what haunts me most. They're losing the memory of their own mother. My heart ached for him. For them. I'm sorry. I loved Caroline, he said, as if he needed me to know. But I'm not looking for someone to replace her. I'm looking for someone to help me build something new. Someone who'll love my children not because they're hers, but because they need loving. Does that make sense? Perfect sense, I said quietly. As we approached the house, two small figures burst from the front door. Emma, all arms and legs and wild brown hair, and Daniel, smaller and quieter, with his father's serious gray eyes. "Papa!" Emma shrieked, launching herself at James the moment he climbed down from the wagon. "You're back. Did you bring her? Is she nice? Does she like children? Will she make cookies?" James laughed. A rich, warm sound I hadn't heard from him before. "Slow down, grasshopper. Give the lady a chance to catch her breath." He set Emma down and turned to help me from the wagon. When my feet touched the ground, I found myself facing two very curious, very cautious children. "Emma, Daniel, this is Miss Whitmore. If things work out between us, she'll be your new mother." Emma studied me with unsettling directness. "You're not very pretty." "Emma!" James's voice was sharp, but I knelt down to Emma's level, meeting her eyes. "No, I'm not. But I'm very good at making cookies, and reading stories, and braiding hair, though yours looks like it might be a challenge." Emma touched her tangled mess self-consciously. "Mama used to braid it. Papa tries, but..." She shrugged. "I could try," I offered. "If you'd like." Emma considered this gravely. Then she nodded. "Okay, but if you're mean or boring, we'll ask Papa to send you back." "Emma!" James looked mortified, but I smiled. "That's fair. If I'm mean or boring, I deserve to be sent back." Daniel, who'd been silent throughout this exchange, suddenly tugged on my skirt. When I looked down, he held up a battered wooden horse. "His name is Thunder," the boy said softly. "Papa made him." "Do you like horses?" "I've never actually ridden one," I admitted, "but I'd like to learn. Could you teach me about them?" Daniel's face lit up. "Really? Really?" James watched this exchange with something unreadable in his expression. Finally, he cleared his throat. "Emma, Daniel, why don't you show Miss Whitmore the house? I'll bring in her things." The children grabbed my hands and pulled me toward the porch, chattering about rooms and toys and the barn cat who just had kittens. As I climbed the steps, I glanced back at James. He was watching us with such naked hope on his weathered face that it took my breath away. This wasn't just about him finding a wife. It was about his children finding a mother. About a broken family finding a way to be whole again. The weight of that responsibility should have terrified me. Instead, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Purpose. Inside, the house was clean but clearly lacking a woman's touch. Functional rather than comfortable. The kitchen was well-equipped but stark. The sitting room had furniture but no cushions, no curtains, no softness. Emma watched me take it all in. "Papa tries," she said defensively, "but he doesn't know how to make it feel like home anymore." I knelt down again, eye level with both children. "Then maybe we can figure it out together. Would you like that?" Emma's face was still guarded, but Daniel nodded enthusiastically. It wasn't acceptance. Not yet, but it was a beginning, and sometimes that's all you need to build something real. I lasted 3 days before my secret demanded to be told. 3 days of learning the rhythm of the ranch. Rising before dawn to help James with breakfast. Walking Emma and Daniel to the small schoolhouse 2 miles down the road. Learning to milk cows, gather eggs, and coax the temperamental stove into cooperation. 3 days of James being unfailingly kind, the children slowly warming to me, and feeling like maybe, just maybe, I could actually build a life here. Then the letter came. James brought it from town along with supplies. "For you," he said, handing me the envelope. Boston postmark. My hands shook as I took it. I recognized the handwriting immediately. Narrow, pinched, full of judgment. Mrs. Patricia Ashworth. President, Boston Ladies Moral Society. "Bad news?" James asked, noting my expression. "I need to read this privately," I managed. He nodded, asking no questions, and I fled to the small bedroom that had become mine. With trembling fingers, I opened the envelope. "Miss Whitmore, it has come to our attention that you have relocated to Wyoming territory, presumably to escape the consequences of your moral failing. We feel obligated to inform your new community of your true character. A woman who would abandon her own child has no place in decent society, Western or otherwise. We have written to the pastor of Cottonwood Creek Methodist Church to ensure they are aware of your shame. May God have mercy on your soul. Mrs. Patricia Ashworth. The letter fluttered from my numb fingers. They knew. Of course they knew. Boston society never forgot a scandal, never forgave a fall from grace. And now James would know too. I sank onto the bed, years of buried grief crashing over me like a wave. I'd been 19 when it happened. Naive, trusting, desperately in love with a young man who'd promised me the world. Michael Garrett, son of a wealthy merchant, had courted me properly for 6 months. When he'd proposed, I'd believed him. When he'd persuaded me to demonstrate my love before marriage, I'd trusted him. When I discovered I was pregnant, he'd disappeared. His family had paid my father to keep quiet, paid for me to be sent to a home for wayward women in the countryside, paid for the birth and the immediate adoption. I'd held my daughter for exactly 10 minutes before they took her away. 10 minutes to memorize her face, her tiny fingers, the sound of her cry, then nothing. No name, no contact, no chance to ever find her again. My parents had never forgiven me. The shame had killed my father's business and my mother's health. When they died, the neighbors had made sure I knew it was my fault. No decent man would ever marry me. No respectable woman would associate with me. I was damaged goods, marked by sin, unworthy of redemption. That's why James's advertisement had seemed like providence. Physical beauty not required, strength of character essential. He was looking for someone imperfect, someone with shadows. But abandoning a child? That wasn't a shadow. That was an unforgivable stain. I didn't hear the knock on my door until it came a second time. Grace. James's voice was quiet. Pastor Williams just arrived. He needs to speak with both of us. My throat closed. They hadn't wasted time. Boston's poison had already reached Wyoming. I descended the stairs like a woman walking to her execution. Pastor Williams stood in the sitting room, a gray-haired man with kind eyes and a letter in his weathered hands. The same letter, no doubt, that Mrs. Ashworth had sent me. Miss Whitmore, he said gently, I received some disturbing correspondence from Boston. Before I respond, I wanted to hear your side of the story. There is no side, I whispered. Everything they wrote is true. I had a child out of wedlock. I gave her away. I came here to escape my past. Tears streamed down my face. I should have told Mr. Holloway before I accepted his offer. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. James had been silent throughout this. Now he spoke. Pastor Williams, could you give us a moment? The pastor nodded and stepped out onto the porch. James turned to me, and I braced myself for anger, disgust, rejection. Instead, his voice was quiet. How old were you? 19. And the father? Gone. His family paid mine to keep quiet. Did you want to keep the baby? The question broke me. More than anything. But I had no money, no home, no way to support her. They said she'd have a better life with a proper family. They said it was for the best. And you've carried that grief ever since. I could only nod, sobs choking my throat. James was quiet for a long moment. Then he said the last thing I expected. Grace, sit down. There's something I need to tell you too. James paced the sitting room, his hands clenched at his sides, working up courage. Finally, he stopped and faced me. Emma and Daniel aren't my biological children. I stared at him, uncomprehending. Caroline and I, we tried for years to have children. It never happened. The doctor said it was my fault that I was unable. It nearly destroyed our marriage. He rubbed his face wearily. Then 7 years ago, a woman showed up at the ranch. Pregnant, desperate, running from a man who'd beaten her. Caroline took her in, helped her through the birth. Emma, I whispered. Emma, he confirmed. The woman stayed 3 months, then left in the middle of the night. Just vanished. Left a note saying she couldn't be a mother, couldn't handle it. Begged us to raise Emma as our own. So we did. Filed papers, made it legal, gave her our name. And Daniel? Different woman, similar story. 2 years later, running from a different kind of hell. She stayed long enough to recover from the birth, then asked if we'd take him. Said she had nothing to offer a child but poverty and shame. Caroline agreed immediately. My head spun. But the town, people must know. Some suspect. Most don't ask questions. Out here, people understand that family is what you build, not just what you're born into. He met my eyes. I didn't tell you in my letters because I wanted you to meet them first. See them as they are. Love them for who they are, not pity them for what they lack. I don't pity them, I said fiercely. They're wonderful. Yes, they are. But they're also terrified. His voice cracked slightly. They remember their birth mothers leaving. They remember Caroline dying. They're convinced that every woman they love will eventually abandon them. The pieces fell into place. Emma's wariness. Daniel's desperate need for reassurance. Their fear that I'd be sent back if I was mean or boring. That's why you wanted someone with strength of character, I said slowly. Someone who wouldn't leave. Someone who understood hardship. I wanted someone who'd stay, James said simply. Not because circumstances were perfect, but because staying mattered more than running. When I read your letters, the honesty, the determination, the refusal to give up despite everything, I knew you were someone who understood what it meant to fight for something. But I gave up my child, I protested. I let them take her. I didn't fight hard enough. You were 19, alone and powerless, James said firmly. You did what you thought was best for her with the options you had. That's not giving up. That's love. The word hung between us. Love. Grace, he continued, his voice gentler. I don't care what Boston thinks. I don't care what their moral societies say. I care about whether you'll stay. Whether you'll love my children even though they're not yours by blood. Whether you'll build a life here even when it's hard. And the town, I asked. When they find out about my past? The ones who matter won't care. The ones who care don't matter. He took a step closer. Pastor Williams is a good man. He understands that grace means second chances. He'll support us if we ask him to. Us, I repeated, testing the word. Us, James confirmed. If you want there to be in U.S. I know this isn't what you expected. 2 children who aren't mine by blood. A ranch that's all hard work and little romance. A man who's asking you to gamble on a ready-made family. But, yes, I interrupted. He blinked. Yes. Yes, I'll stay. Yes, I'll love your children. Yes, I'll marry you and build a life here. Tears streamed down my face, but for the first time in years, they weren't tears of grief. Those children in there, they need a mother who won't leave. And I need children to love. We're all broken pieces, James. Maybe we can make something whole together. His face transformed. The serious, weathered cowboy disappeared, replaced by a man who'd just been given something precious he'd thought he'd lost forever. Hope. There's one more thing, I said quickly. My daughter, the one I gave up. I need you to know I'll always wonder about her. Always hope she's happy. I can love Emma and Daniel with my whole heart. But there will always be a piece of me that grieves the child I lost. Can you live with that? James crossed the distance between us and took my hands. Grace, we all carry ghosts. Caroline will always be part of my heart. The women who gave birth to Emma and Daniel will always be part of their story. Your daughter will always be part of yours. But ghosts don't have to haunt us. They can remind us why the living matter so much. Through the window, I could see Emma and Daniel playing in the yard, their laughter carrying on the wind. I want to be their mother, I whispered. Really their mother. Not replacement, not second choice. Just theirs. Then let's make it official, James said. Pastor Williams is still on the porch. We could do it now, today. Make you a Holloway before Boston's poison can spread any further. I thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. Let's get married. Pastor Williams married us on the front porch of the Holloway Ranch with Emma and Daniel as witnesses. The ceremony took maybe 10 minutes. No fancy dress, no flowers, no guests. Just 2 broken people promising to build something better, and two scared children hoping this time love might actually stay. Do you, James Edward Holloway, take Grace Eleanor Whitmore to be your lawfully wedded wife, to have and to hold, for better or worse, for richer or poorer, in sickness and in health, as long as you both shall live? I do, James said firmly. And do you, Grace Eleanor Whitmore, take James Edward Holloway to be your lawfully wedded husband, with the same promises and commitments? I looked at James, this man who'd chosen me when he could have had beauty, who'd offered second chances when the world offered only judgment, who understood that family was something you built, not something you were simply born into. I do, I said, meaning it with every broken piece of my heart. Then by the power vested in me by the territory of Wyoming, I pronounce you husband and wife. James, you may kiss your bride. The kiss was brief and chaste, appropriate for the children watching. But in that moment, I felt something shift. I was no longer Grace Whitmore, fallen woman from Boston. I was Grace Holloway, wife and mother, building a new life on a Wyoming ranch. When we separated, Daniel tugged on my skirt. Does this mean you're really our mama now? You can't leave. I knelt down to his level. It means I'm really your mama, and mamas don't leave their babies. Not ever. Not for any reason. Emma's face was harder to read. People always say that, but they leave anyway. You're right, I said, surprising her. Sometimes people do leave even when they promise to stay. So I'm going to make you a different promise. I'm not going to promise I'll never die, because none of us can promise that. But I promise that every single day I'm alive, I will choose you. I will choose to stay, to fight, to love you, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. That's what mothers do. Emma's eyes filled with tears. What if we're bad? What if we make you mad? Then I'll still choose you. That's what family means. But we're not really your family, Emma whispered. Not by blood. I pulled both children close. Listen to me very carefully. Family isn't about blood. It's about choosing each other, day after day, and never giving up. Your papa chose you. I'm choosing you. And someday, when you're old enough to understand, you can choose us back. But right now, you don't have to do anything except let yourself be loved. Can you do that? Daniel nodded immediately. Emma hesitated, then slowly, carefully, rested her head against my shoulder. It wasn't a magical instant transformation. It wasn't the children suddenly calling me mama and everything being perfect. It was just a small moment of trust. A tiny seed planted in rocky soil. But sometimes that's all you need to grow something beautiful. Pastor Williams cleared his throat. Mrs. Holloway, might I have a word in private? James nodded his permission, and I followed the pastor a few steps away from the house. I wanted you to know, he said quietly, that I wrote to Mrs. Ashworth in Boston. I told her that I'd spoken with you at length about your past, that I found you to be a woman of strong moral character who'd suffered unjustly, and that if she contacted anyone in this community again with malicious gossip, I would personally write to the Boston Archdiocese about her unchristian behavior. My eyes widened. You didn't have to. Yes, I did. I've been a pastor for 32 years, Mrs. Holloway. I've seen true sin, and I've seen people crucified for circumstances beyond their control. You fall into the latter category. He smiled kindly. Besides, James Holloway is one of the best men I know. If he chose you, that tells me everything I need to know about your character. Thank you, I whispered. Don't thank me. Just love those children. They've had enough loss in their short lives. Give them the stability they deserve. I will. I promise. After the pastor left, the four of us stood on the porch, James, myself, Emma, and Daniel, looking out at the ranch that was now mine by marriage. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. What do we do now? I asked James. He smiled, that same slight curve of lips that transformed his face. Now, we live, we work, we build. We become a family, one day at a time. Emma slipped her small hand into mine. She didn't say anything, but the gesture spoke volumes. Daniel tugged on James's hand. Can we have cookies for dinner? Since it's a special day. James laughed. We can have cookies with dinner. Grace, Do you actually know how to make cookies? Or were you bluffing? I know how to make cookies, I assured him. Though I'll need Emma's help. I don't know where anything is in the kitchen yet. I can show you, Emma said, suddenly animated. And Daniel can help measure ingredients. He's good at counting. As the children pulled us inside, chattering about recipes and whether chocolate or sugar cookies were better, I caught James's eye. He mouthed 2 words. Thank you. I mouthed back. For what? For staying. Such a simple thing. Such an enormous thing. As I stood in that kitchen, learning where the flour was kept and teaching Emma how to cream butter and sugar, listening to Daniel count cups of ingredients, feeling James's presence steady and solid beside me, I realized something profound. I'd come west looking for escape. I'd found purpose instead. I thought I was beyond redemption. But redemption wasn't about being perfect. It was about being chosen despite imperfection. About choosing others despite their imperfections. About building something real from broken pieces. That night, after cookies and dinner and tucking 2 exhausted children into bed, James and I sat on the porch in the darkness. Regrets? He asked quietly. Not one, I said honestly. You? Not one. We sat in comfortable silence, listening to the night sounds of the ranch. Somewhere in the distance, a coyote howled. Closer, the horses shifted in the barn. Above us, 1,000,000 stars blazed in the clear Wyoming sky. Grace. Yes. Thank you for being exactly who you are. I leaned my head against his shoulder. Thank you for ordering, right? 5 years have passed since that August day in 1889. The ranch has grown. We've added a 3rd bedroom, a proper parlor, and a barn big enough for the herd James has built through sweat and determination. Emma is 13 now, all long legs and fierce intelligence, helping me teach Daniel his letters and already talking about becoming a teacher herself. Daniel is 11, quieter than his sister, but with a gift for animals that makes him invaluable with the horses. We don't talk much about their birth mothers anymore. Not because we've forgotten, but because they've made peace with their story. They know they were born from different women, chosen by James and Caroline, and chosen again by me. They know love isn't about blood. It's about commitment. Sometimes, late at night, I still think about my daughter. She'd be 9 now. I hope she's happy. I hope her adopted family loves her the way I've learned to love Emma and Daniel. I hope someday, somehow, she knows that giving her up wasn't abandonment. It was the most painful love I've ever known. But I don't carry the shame anymore. Wyoming taught me that the past doesn't define you unless you let it. That second chances are real. That family is what you build with your choices, not what circumstances force upon you. Last week, a letter arrived from Lydia Prescott, now Lydia Chun, wife of a San Francisco merchant, mother of twin girls, and by her own account, finally free. She wrote, Grace, you were right. The West doesn't care about your past. It only cares if you're brave enough to build your future. Thank you for showing me that. James keeps that first photograph I sent him in his wallet. The plain, serious girl from Boston who had nothing to offer but determination. Sometimes I catch him looking at it, smiling. What? I always ask. I'm just remembering. He says, how I ordered exactly right. And every single time I believe him, because sometimes the wrong girl is exactly the right woman.